This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at McCabe Law LLC of Portland, Maine, which should be your first call should you decide to dive into either Maine or Massachusetts legal marijuana markets. Make sure you're covered from lease to license and from seed to sale by engaging with Chris McCabe and his team of pros over at McCabe Law LLC of Portland, Maine. Find out how to get in touch and learn more about all the services they offer over at McCabeLawLLC.com, which is spelled McCabe LawLLC.com. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, October 11th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 349 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Before we do that, though, I feel compelled to comment real quick about a story from yesterday's show, which talked about the impacts the wildfires in Northern California could have on legal marijuana. At the time that I wrote and recorded the show yesterday, I did not have the proper sense for just how bad these wildfires are. As I caught up on the news throughout the day, I started to feel terrible about how I approached the story. For one, I don't think I would have even mentioned it at all had I had the proper understanding of the situation. These wildfires are way bigger than the cannabis angle right now and have killed more than 17 people, burned thousands more from their homes, and driven even more to flee, hoping they don't come home to ashes. But even if I had decided on covering it, I feel like I was a little flip in my tone, and for that I sincerely apologize. It was my bad entirely. I hope everyone impacted by these fires stays safe and that the flames get knocked down as quickly as possible. Our top story of the day is actually another correction, as Tom Angel over at Marijuana Moment calls out a number of industry publications for botching an AP story about a veto California Governor Jerry Brown dropped on a proposed bill that would have created new sanctions for people caught smoking or vaping tobacco or cannabis products in public parks and beaches. As Tom's calling it, sites like the Cannabis and Marijuana Business Daily were wrong in how they framed the story with their headlines, in that consuming marijuana is still very much illegal in California parks and beaches, just not more so, which would have been the case had Governor Brown not vetoed the measure. The Cannabist ran the AP story with the headline, quote, "Californians can smoke and vape weed in parks, on beaches, decides Gov," unquote, while Marijuana Business Daily went with something pretty much the same. To be clear, it is still very much illegal to use cannabis anywhere in California besides a private home. The potential danger in the misleading headlines is that someone sees the story and gets it in their head that they can go out to their favorite beach and consume. This is an important story because it also speaks to the state of marijuana media in general. As someone who spends all day dealing with news that other people write, I know how important it is to get the details correct, and more importantly, how to admit it when you screw up. Swing over to Tom's piece on Marijuana Moment for the full read on this one. Swinging out over the Atlantic Ocean for a headline, we have news out of the United Kingdom of the first reading of a proposed bill to legalize medical marijuana that went off without any kind of opposition. The medical marijuana legislation was introduced by MP Paul Flynn, who in July called on medical marijuana patients to travel to the Parliament building in London to consume cannabis in protest. Yesterday, while the MP's bill was being read for the first time, the patients who heard Mr. Flynn's call gathered outside and carried out that protest, thankfully without any arrests. The medical marijuana legislation still has a long way to go and will go up for its next reading in Parliament in February. We'll report back if anything more develops there. Our final top story of the day is the finding that Guam Attorney General Elizabeth Barrett Anderson issued over the matter of random drug testing of government employees. In her opinion, Attorney General Barrett Anderson said that the practice was unconstitutional, specifically by violating employees' Fourth Amendment rights. The opinion was given after a request from a Guam senator working on a bill to randomly drug test government employees, and after several government agencies had already forced their employees to submit to random testing. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz on the headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, McCabe Law LLC of Portland, Maine, which offers a full range of legal services for both the Maine and Massachusetts legal marijuana industries. Chris McCabe and his team of industry experts over at McCabe Law are able to make sure that all the necessary boxes are checked and legal angles covered. It's important enough as it is when you engage in a new business venture to get a great law firm on your side, but it's even more so with legal cannabis, where the potential consequences for slipping up are naturally amplified. Cover all your legal and operational bases and maximize your chances of success by engaging with the pros over at McCabe Law LLC of Portland, Maine. Learn more about all the things they do and get in touch over at McCabeLawLLC.com, which is spelled MCCABE, lawllc.com. All right, time for the Blitz. A licensed marijuana infusion company in Carbondale, Colorado is in danger of having its license revoked after numerous complaints were lodged about noxious odors emanating from its facility. The Laughing Dog Group holds a license to create infused products and are accused by neighbors of running an overly smelly shop. If stripped of their license, the business would be the first in the state to lose their ability to operate thanks to repeated violations. The Netherlands is considering a plan to legalize the cultivation of marijuana. While cannabis consumption has been officially tolerated by the Dutch government in the settings of coffee shops for decades, the act of actually growing it has remained illegal, even as the crime was mostly ignored by officials. Under the new plan up for consideration, as many as 10 Dutch municipalities will take part in the test program licensing cannabis cultivators, with further expansion possible if things are successful. Leafly has an interesting story up about a recent study published in the medical journal Psychopharmacology that suggests that people who consume marijuana on a daily basis were better able to cope with high-stress situations. The study involved 40 regular cannabis consumers and 42 people who have used marijuana but not on a regular basis and tested their reaction to stressful situations. One of the points of the study was to see how people reacted when they weren't under the influence of cannabis, so all study participants had stopped using cannabis 12 to 18 hours ahead of being tested. The findings suggest that people who use marijuana on a regular basis had a muted response to stress compared to non-frequent users. The study's authors took pains to point out that they weren't sure yet if that response was good or bad, and said that they planned to follow up with further studies. Not a bad one to click over for the full read. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. California Governor Jerry Brown issued another veto this week concerning marijuana, this time by squashing a proposed bill that would have more tightly regulated butane gas, a necessary component for some kinds of marijuana extraction processes. The governor said that though he agreed with the intent of the bill, the California Department of Health was actually already working on a set of regulations for butane gas that would be finalized by the end of the year. Bouncing back overseas for yet another headline, we have some good potential movement in Scotland in the direction of progressive drug policy reform, with the Scottish National Party, a nationalist and social democratic organization, voting for a motion calling on the United Kingdom, which controls Scottish national drug policy, to free the Scottish Parliament to craft their own set of progressive drug laws. According to an estimate released yesterday by the Montana Department of Revenue, the state could see around $19 million in legal medical marijuana sales pass through their state dispensaries this year, with $750,000 in tax revenue going to the state. And finally for today, we have news of former Attorney General Eric Holder criticizing current Attorney General Jeff Sessions for his seeming obsession with marijuana. During a speech he was giving in New York this week, Mr. Holder talked about the legislative protections afforded state legal medical marijuana, saying, quote, "It was a really good policy," unquote, before criticizing Sessions for his backwards view on cannabis. I think it's worth pointing out a tweet by Tom Angel here, who, when he's not working hard as a cannabis journalist, is one of the better activist commentators around. In response to the news, Tom simply tweeted, quote, "Hi, Eric Holder could have rescheduled marijuana while in office, but didn't," unquote. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, McCabe Law LLC, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with Marijuana Today.
One take, Shay. One take.